Pride Month itself is a way to take up space, a way to let people know that they're here, they're queer, and they're ready to go into this world.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Hi, I'm Cameron Bartosiewicz, and I'm the president and CEO of the Youth Pride Association. So we're a national nonprofit that works to support LGBTQ youth through education, support, and advocacy. Hi, Joanne.
Hello, I'm Joanne Zulia. I live at Vitalia Montrose, just outside of Akron. I am the mother of 3 adult gay children who are in committed relationships. My daughter just celebrated her 20th wedding anniversary in August.
Congrats to her.
And I've been a member of PFLAG for a number of years. I think Pride Youth today is so much about accepting yourself as you are, loving who you want to love, and to have that acceptance. It wasn't like that. Of course, she referred to the Stonewall riots in '69. I had just been out of high school for 3 years. But back then, police raided clubs and bars where gays would gather, and they were arrested and treated really badly. And for me, I'm so glad it's changed. But there's still, in our youth today, the thing that I'm seeing is a higher rate of depression and homelessness, especially when they come out, if they're still living at home. My children came out, one came out in high school and the others when they got to college. So our family was very, maybe different, because my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, my husband's brother and sister, have been openly gay since they were teenagers. So we kind of were used to the whole situation, and we understood it probably more than most parents. And I have to say, my family was wonderfully supportive, and our kids felt that love. They knew they were accepted and loved just as they were. Just as they are.
I think you brought up a good point kind of about the rates of depression, homelessness, and suicide. And from my understanding of kind of how these dynamics work out, I think the rate's kind of inconsistent, unfortunately, throughout history. I think a lot of it really roots from societal rejection. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of the youth today, especially with recent events, have faced a lot of that. I think it really kind of feeds into a lot of the negativity and the negative attributes. Um, we use a lot of studies and kind of try to keep things data driven at our organization. And the science is kind of clear on this. Like when LGBTQ youth are accepted, a lot of the differences and adversities they face kind of just all but disappear, right? They're not depressed, they're
Sure.
not suicidal. So it's kind of interesting, kind of where it comes from. And I think Pride, it kind of depends on where you look at it. If you look at Pride parades, it's kind of all about like celebrating, right? It's about taking up space. But I think Pride Month itself is more of like a protest, especially in recent years and in recent movements. We can talk about like the corporatization and kind of how it's toned that down a bit of Pride, but I think youth today are really using it kind of as a way to take up space, a way to let people know that they're here, they're queer, and they're ready to go into this world. Um, and I think the youth today generally are more accepted. The statistics kind of all really indicate that. Now, if we compare to 2015, things are getting a little bit worse, but I think things are going in a hopefully again positive trajectory. But kind of as you talked about with the Stonewall riots, if we don't keep taking up space and keep trying to push for
Hmm.
better conditions for the folks we love, things can kind of really regress. I think we're really learning
Well,
that.
and especially in today's political climate, when you look at the very right-wing conservatives, they would like it if those particular rights that gay people now have, and those of us that are their allies, they would like to see that go away. They would like nothing better than to repeal the Marriage Act, the other ways that we can that our gay youth especially can have the visibility that they need. And also, I'm concerned about getting health care for them, the proper health care, without being stigmatized or not being able to get the health care that they need for they and their loved ones. And that's a big issue. That is an issue in this country. My daughter was the LGBTQ person in Washington, D.C. and in New York City for Ohio University. This is something that she was really into. Now she runs a not-for-profit down in Athens, Ohio, where she feeds people and clothes them and has 3 children of her own. And it's very interesting to see how they are raised. And I wonder sometimes if she lived in a big city, if she would be as accepted as she is there.
Mhm.
It would be different if she lived in like say Cleveland, Ohio. I don't think she would be as accepted. Perhaps in California she would be, but I'm not sure. She comes from a small town that she grew up in, and I don't think people would be as understanding or accepting.
Yeah, I think generally things are, I like to think a little better here. Our laws are a little better. There's like 30 states you can legally discriminate against LGBTQ people.
Mm-hmm.
Not one of them. But I mean, you still face the rejection. Every time I go in for a physical, they order an
Right.
HIV test immediately, right? Even if
Uh-huh.
I'm gone a week ago. So there's still that stigmatization, right? It's
There
not as
is.
bad.
Yeah,
It's not as bad as other places, but there's always room for improvement, and everywhere has kind of those places where I don't think queer folk are necessarily as accepted. It
you're
might
right.
help.
You're
Yeah.
right. And there's assumptions made that should not be. I think as seniors, we need to let gay youth tell their stories, their struggles, really listen to them. And we may find that we've got a lot more in common than we have different. I think there's still a sense of fear that they're different than we are. And there should be a fear factor there, and there's not at all. And that's something, we look at. I'm looking at this second question. What should a person do if they think someone is lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender, but they haven't been told? I believe it's not my news to tell. And I truly
Exactly.
believe that this discussion should be done privately by that person and the people they love, and it's nobody's business. And so much today with the way we do our media things, everybody wants to know, it's a big deal. And it really shouldn't be. It's just another facet of that person. And we put people into boxes. And I think I'm hoping as the next generation comes after me, they'll be a lot more accepting. Here at our community, we have 2 men who are gay, and they are a wonderful couple. And they've been married for many years, and we all love them and accept them. And hopefully, it opens the door to more gay couples saying, "This is a community that would welcome me, and it's a safe place for me to make my home." And
Mhm.
that's the whole thing.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit on an interesting point there, kind of with it being an aspect of our identity, not necessarily like the entirety of our identity.
Exactly.
There's something called I think it's the CAS identity, LGBT identity synthesis, and essentially it kind of talks about the way queer identity develops. Um, And there's the last two steps are identity pride and identity synthesis. Identity pride is like uh where the LGBT identity really like takes hold. It's where a person really like expresses their identity as much as possible and really kind of consumes that individual mostly because
Mhm.
of the inability to express it in the past. And then the next step is identity synthesis, where that identity becomes one part of like a whole person.
That's
And
right.
yeah. Um, and I think you also hit on an interesting point about kind of having a private conversation. There's something called I'm sure you're aware, but just to make sure everyone's aware, something
Okay.
called coming out, right? Where an
Right.
LGBTQ person will like let you know about their identity. And I think the advice we give is just let them do it in their own time. If they
Exactly.
want to tell you, they'll tell you. But the thing you shouldn't do is go around gossiping about it because that can really
No,
do a lot
no,
of harm.
it's
Yeah.
because it's not, people will use the religious. That was the next question. And that view, it just makes me crazy because God is not is about boundless love, not it's the Old and the New Testament have been used to just pick and choose which scriptures they want to point out. But really, these are just isolated passages. And if we really took everything Leviticus had, it's, I mean, we would never cut our hair. Women would never wear slacks. We couldn't have clothing of different fibers. And we certainly wouldn't throw a football. So you have to, when you read it one by one, the it didn't in the Bible, those passages were not taken for love and mutuality in committed relationships. That was, it was a whole different context. I'm very happy that my children happen to have found their person, and they have all been married anywhere from 20 years down to 9 years. And I'm happy for them. And they have wonderful lives and beautiful homes. And I'm really thankful that they are so well adjusted. But I'm sure they do face discrimination sometimes.
Mhm. I think it's really interesting that you kind of bring up Leviticus because certain religious scholars that I kind of I follow uh, have really found that the passage that they use for Leviticus, when properly translated, means with kids. And I found it really
Mhm.
funny that what was it, the Christian and Catholic Church had changed that passage to men. I think it's kind of funny that that's sometimes what's used um, to kind of rationalize a lot of the hatred. But I think you kind of like hit on a point that like
Well,
we,
and there is hatred. There is hatred. And
yeah,
that is just not, I don't think it should be accepted.
mhm.
God loves us as we are. We are his children. This, he didn't say, well, I'll only love the straight people. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
He loves every one of us. And he wants us to be included in that love. And unfortunately, there is hatred and bias, and people will use anything to behave badly. I call it. It's just not right.
yeah, definitely. And I think it is kind of a little hard to kind of go against a lot of kind of what we've been taught, right? Growing up. We're all really like kind of a product of our time. And if I was born like 60 years earlier, I might be a closeted gay man, right? So
Sure.
I think building an atmosphere of inclusion really just comes down to a lot of kind of, from what I've experienced, a lot of like personal relationships and really like building good rapport with people and really showing them that we should be inclusive, we can be inclusive. It is better for everyone if we're inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I've seen. It's sometimes a little bit difficult, but I think just from a micro level, what we can all kind of do is just kind of work on building inclusion, kind of calling out bias whenever we see it, and kind of working together to make sure we accept everyone for kind of who they are.
That's right. I think it's important that these young people are supported from a younger age than we thought. Um, there are kids who know they're gay from elementary school. And I know people say, oh, they can't possibly, but they do. They know. And they might not express it at that age, but they do as they get older. And if you're an observant parent, I knew my kids were gay before they told me, but it was just certain behaviors and ways they spoke. And you just need to let them have that ability to be open with you. I used to leave all kinds of books around the house, and I'd say, if you have any questions, I'm here. And many of their gay friends would come and visit us. And it was really, it was wonderful. We tried to use inclusive language. And of course, we didn't allow bullying or people calling each other names. That was not acceptable. And still you see it in even in elementary school, kids called each other awful names. And it's not, you have to stop it somewhere to say, this is not an acceptable way to communicate with one another. And I that to me is the worst part of it all. And we
Yeah.
can be an ally. We can be an ally. And we seniors, those of us, I lived almost 80 years. We we can help these kids feel more comfortable in their own skin, tell their story, and just, you know, this is so much better than them attempting suicide or being homeless or all the different things that can happen to them. You probably know much better than I, but I saw this with people that the kids I knew that were my kids' friends who were cut off from college funds. Some were literally thrown out of their homes. Any funds that they received were cut off immediately. And it just didn't make sense to me at all, but that's what happened.
Yeah, a lot of LGBT youth kind of have this fear of coming out with their parents
Mm-hmm.
because, when you face rejection, kind of your entire life can be over, right? Uh,
Yes,
yeah, that's why the homeless rate is what, 40% for LGBT
right.
youth?
42%. Yep.
Yeah, so it's kind of a whole difficult issue to tackle. From my view, I'm a little biased because I do run an organization, but donating to LGBT nonprofits that focus on LGBT youth, I think is a great way to support.
Okay.
Because we do a lot of like work on making sure those who have faced rejection kind of can
Okay.
live full lives, right? Providing like a lot of support resources because not everyone needs to be an expert in LGBT youth, and we fortunately are. But also
That's
kind of
true.
calling out when people are kind of saying things that maybe aren't okay. I think in our personal circles would be good because silence can kind of be attributed often to um, accepting what's being said. That's a huge thing
Right.
in schools right now that we're working on is teachers hearing kids call each other slurs and then not saying anything. And then
Right.
the LGBTQ students just immediately attribute that teacher to be okay with what's being said. In
Mm-hmm.
reality, those teachers are like, I don't like that, but in this climate, I don't want to say anything, right? So I think just really calling that out when you see it, and again, just being supportive, being an ally. It's fortunately not rocket science. It's rather simple to just support
Exactly.
a group. Yeah,
Just create a safe space for that person to talk, tell their story, um, and keep it to yourself. Like you say, don't gossip about it. That's not what it's about. It's about them feeling safe enough to tell you what's on their mind. And that's just takes listening and being empathetic to them.
yeah. And if we look at the population dynamics, we can really attribute about 20% of seniors to being LGBTQ, and yet
Mhm.
only about 1% identify. So I think a great way that you guys can support LGBT youth is supporting each other, making those safe
Yep.
spaces so people can really
And
express an
it's
identity that they've been
right.
maybe repressing for
Many
decades.
years. Yes,
Yeah.
decades. When I first went into PFLAG, there were a couple people there who were grieving their partner, and I was in my 40s and 50s, and they were in their 70s, and they had nowhere that they could grieve openly to say, my partner died. I have no one to turn to. They had to tell everybody, yes, he was my best friend or she was my best friend, not the true relationship at all, because they didn't feel they'd be accepted. And that to me is not right. And now things are a lot better, but I'm sure there's still people, especially the older generation, that would not come out and say, my life partner died. And it it's a shame that that's what it's like today, still
Yeah.
in some circles, you know?
Yeah, that's I hope that for no one. My goal is always just to make the most inclusive space possible, so
Mm-hmm.
LGBT folk can live the best life that they can, right? And not have to hide such a core part of yourself, right? I can't even imagine the distress that might cause someone on a day-to-day basis, right?
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly. And you figure for their housing, their employment, their just all the things you go through to lead your life, you have to hide that part of you. And now people don't have to, thank goodness.
mhm. I don't have to, I think, socially, but if we're going to talk on a state by state level, there's still about 30 places that
Mm-hmm.
I can't live, and I think I can't live openly, and I think a lot of folk would also probably face a lot of those discriminations. So
And other countries also.
yes,
Not,
yes,
I mean, we're fortunate in the United States, but if we were in Saudi Arabia, would not be very well for us.
yes, yes. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm still a little worried about some of these states. The trajectory is a little
Florida
scary.
being
Florida,
one of
but
them.
unfortunately, there's about 30 states that then next year adopt whatever Florida adopted on culture war issues. So
Mm-hmm.
I would be yeah, a little scared sometimes about the LGBT folk living there.
Well, and this is where we have to be careful. There's that one question about how is this being used politically. Um, it's used as a wedge, I think, to push people apart rather than bring them together. And unfortunately, the right wing parties seem to bring this up as part of their platform because they want that animosity. They want people to be afraid of one another.
Yeah, and even if we just look in voting demographics, LGBT folk overwhelmingly vote Democrat. So the more closeted LGBT folk you can create in your state, probably the better for your
Mm-hmm.
political future. Because it's what
Yes,
20% of Generation Z. The writing's on the wall. LGBT folk are a huge voting bloc in it.
exactly.
I think that
Exactly.
scares them.
So it can be used, there's a lot of the backlash. I'm concerned about what I'm seeing with the upcoming election, and we have to educate people about what's really going on and how they're being perceived.
Yeah, I mean, even this Pride Month, kind of scares me. The FBI gave us notice of a new threat alert. I don't know if you've heard
Yep.
about it.
I read about it. Yes.
Yeah, we got it 2, 3 weeks ago, and we've had to cancel a lot of our events. And I'm really scared because a lot of these LGBTQ smaller events don't have security. That's something that we usually require to attend an
Right.
event. So I don't know. It terrifies me, the climate. And this isn't even really, well, it might be homegrown, but it's these are external parties kind of feeding off of this fabricated culture war issue,
Right.
kind
And
of
it could even
so
be a lone
dissident.
wolf,
Yeah,
somebody that's not even in an organization. I saw that was put out by the State Department. They also said to be careful in other countries, be
yeah.
not even also the United States, where there might be gay pride parades and so forth.
I hope nothing happens, but honestly, a little scared this coming June. Not for my safety because it's kind of always on the line at our organization, but
Mm-hmm.
the safety of the community.
No, you're right. Yeah, I know when my daughter was going to college and her visibility as the head person for the LGBTQ community, there were women. There was one woman who had her jaw shattered by a man who just didn't like that she was gay and beat her. She got people out of jail. There were, but at the same time, there were men who had been assaulted who came to her and told their story, which they had never told anybody. It wasn't just women that were assaulted. I marched with her when she was running for the head of the community, the whole community, and I was appalled by the slurs and the things that were thrown at us in front of fraternity and sorority houses. That just really opened my eyes. I could not believe it. And we were surrounded by this phalanx of women called swarms of dykes, and nobody messed with us. So we marched through the night, and it was a really wonderful experience. I was the only mother that showed up. So, yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, like the rates of violence are still really high. I think
Yes, yes.
Bureau of Justice Statistics do surveys on like victimization, which is a
Mm-hmm.
really great way to understand like what crimes are actually like occurring. It doesn't take into account like prosecution bias and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And they found about 64,250 anti-LGBT hate crimes happen uh, yearly, and 90% are violent. So that's a
Yes,
lot of LGBT folk getting their jaws stomped in, getting murdered, getting
right.
attacked, just for who you are, who they are, and that's honestly very scary sometimes.
It's
Uh,
appalling. I
it's
mean, my
very
prayer has always been, please don't let someone hurt my children because they're gay. And there are people that would hurt them just on the basis of their sexual orientation. And that is not right.
no, definitely not. Um, Yeah, we do get death threats at our organization. Sorry, I know we're supposed to keep it light.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, let's do some later stuff.
but some of the things they say is honestly really funny. So I think also finding the humor and some of this bigotry, I think, is a great way to cope for anyone
Yep.
doing this work.
Hmm.
Some of the things they say is just ridiculous and it's really funny. So
Well,
that's
my son-in-law told me I have a new business. I like to bling out things. He said drag queens would love your work. You could bling out their outfits. I said this would be another income source for me. It would be fun.
yeah.
And some of their friends are queens, and I meet them and I go to their shows, and it's fun. We had drag queen bingo last year. I was the only one who went, but we had a wonderful time. So it's not, we have to, I don't know. It was so affirming for me to go to my first Pride. I was a little afraid because I did fear perhaps violence from people in the crowd and watching, but I found none of that. It was joy, it was happiness. I had a wonderful time. And everybody there had a good time. And there was, oh, I can't even know, I don't even know how many in Cleveland came out, but it was terrific. And then my daughters met me, and it was just a very life affirming time. When I can no longer walk, I'm going to be those women who wear those t-shirts that say, I'll give you a hug, one of those hug
Mhm.
moms. I'll be standing on the edges. So, but it's, I found it to be a very worthwhile experience.
Yeah,
And
that's kind of something I tell a lot of people when they kind of say, "Oh, I don't really know about this whole LGBTQ." I'm like, "So
mhm,
don't be afraid. Just don't even participate. Just watch and see."
exactly.
Yeah, and yeah, there's just really something about queer joy that I think really changes a lot of people's minds.
Well, I teased my friends here. They said, "What was it like?" I said, "The fashion was fierce. You had to go see it." It was wonderful. I loved it. And the creativity was amazing. And the people that cheered us on the sidewalks were terrific, waving and cheering, and it was a wonderful experience. And so that's why I said, I'll do it again. And my daughter said this time they'll meet me and we'll go because they live in the same city. But it really is something I wish I had done earlier. I think I wasn't closeted myself, but I wasn't as open as to who I am as a mother, as a woman. And now I'm more open to say this is who I am. I still am a Christian woman, but that doesn't mean that I can't support my gay friends, be an ally, and my gay family. and I'm very proud of them. So I'm fine with it.
Definitely. I think I wish a lot more people were like that.
Well, I bet there's more than you think.
Yes.
Just really.
Well, thanks for the conversation, Joanne. It was really great kind of hearing all your experiences.
Cameron, I really enjoyed it. Thank you for this discussion. Hopefully, we've shed some light on our experiences. And the thing I'd like to do in this community is to help people, older people, understand that there's things they can do to make gay people more comfortable and feel more included. So
Definitely, yeah.
that's how my work.
And if you'd like to find out more about my work as the president of the Youth Pride Association, you can find us at ypapride.org
Okay.
or at YPA Pride on any social channel that has any real traffic. Not True Social yet, but we're on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook.
Okay. I do know how to use those things, so I can check that out.
I barely know how to use it, admittedly. I feel really old on social
Oh,
media.
wait. Well, thank you. This was very informative and I enjoyed speaking with you. You have a great
You
afternoon.
you too.
I'll see you.
And I think to myself, what a